Hello and welcome to the first part of your data visualization lecture. So this part is going to be pretty short, and then we'll move over in a separate video to talk about actually how to do data visualization in Python. So the reason why I'm spreading out the data visualization lectures across a couple courses or classes instead of just doing it all in one go is because I think there's a lot more to data visualization than teaching you how to make a box plot or make a scatter plot. Effective data visualization means you have to think about how to clearly communicate a message using your data visualization. And that's not something that stays the same. If you have a different message, the way that you communicate that is probably going to be different. It's not the truth to say that every time you have a continuous variable, you should make a box plot, or every time you have a categorical variable, you should do a bar plot. It really depends on what the message is that you're sending. And it's our job as people who make data visualizations to know the message that we're trying to send, and then to recognize what are the elements of my data visualization that support the message that I'm trying to send, and what are the elements of my data visualization that detract from the message I'm trying to send. And depending on the message, those things are going to be different every single time that you make a data visualization. I can't give you hard and fast rules that will work for any situation. So what I want to do is teach you how to ask the correct questions in order to be an effective data communicator using data visualizations. When we're thinking about what we're trying to communicate, we also need to think about who the audience is that we are communicating to. For instance, a data visualization might look really different if you're presenting to a group of experts who know so much about the topic that you are presenting on. It might look very different from if you were trying to make a data visualization to go in the New York Times, where people with all levels of knowledge and experience would read it. We need to be really cognizant of who the audience is when we're making a data visualization, because if we're truly thinking about the message and how we're communicating that, the audience plays a huge role in that. And finally, I really am passionate about talking about accessibility when it comes to data visualization. And this comes in so many forms, more forms than I could possibly list out here. But some things that we'll specifically talk about are colorblindness. If you're not colorblind, you probably don't think a lot about what colors you're using and how that appears to people who do have some type of colorblindness. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about questions to ask yourself in order to help make graphs accessible and easily understandable by people who are colorblind or people who have visual impairments. Often the default graphs that you build or that are built for you in Python or R or whatever you're using are not built with people with visual impairment in mind. And that's something that you want to think about is, could someone with a certain type of visual impairment still appreciate the message that I'm trying to communicate? Similarly, we have to think about, again, our audience. What is the cultural context for the people who are going to be consuming this message? Are they people from a different culture than you? If so, you need to make sure that you're not making any assumptions or any references that someone outside of your culture is going to not understand. Accessibility basically means we have to think about people who aren't like us. We have to make our data visualization inclusive so that people of all different visual ability, cultures, or any other difference that you could possibly list are still going to be able to appreciate the message that we're trying to communicate. The data visualization package that we're going to use is called Plot9. And if you've ever worked with R, you might recognize a lot of what we're going to do because Plot9 is essentially a port of ggplot. And this is a really beautiful way to make graphs, which we'll cover in the next video, which will go over the actual Python of creating graphs. But I'm really partial to this, and I think it really lends itself to being a thoughtful data visualizer. And so that's why we're going to use this. So we should have installed this before, but if you're having problems, now is the time to make sure that you have installed Plot9 and that it is running on your computer. All right, I will see you for the coding part of this lecture in the next video.